Okay, real quick. Have you ever been lying in bed doing absolutely nothing and your brain just starts talking? Like replaying a conversation, arguing with someone who isn't there, or randomly reminding you of something embarrassing from years ago. That voice in your head, that's your inner voice. Now here's the question that messes people up a little. What if you've never heard a voice before? How do deaf people think? So first, there's no one single answer, because deaf people aren't one single experience. Some people are born deaf, some lose hearing later, some use hearing aids or cochlear implants, some grow up signing, some grow up speaking, and a lot of people do both. But for many people who are born completely deaf and grow up using sign language, they usually think in sign language. Not like they hear words, but they see themselves signing in their mind. Hands moving, facial expressions, space, emotion, all of it. And that might sound strange if you've never experienced it, but it's actually not that different from how hearing people think. Instead of hearing your own voice, it's more like a visual inner language. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Some deaf people, especially those who learn to speak through vocal training, can also think in spoken language sometimes. Even if they've never heard sound the way hearing people do, their brain still builds an internal version of how that language works. So their thoughts might switch, sometimes sign, sometimes spoken words, sometimes pictures or concepts first. It really depends on how they grew up and what kind of language access they had early on. And this part is important. Deafness itself does not damage the brain. What does cause problems is something called language deprivation. Basically, when a child doesn't get full access to a real, complete language early in life. Language isn't just for talking to other people. Your brain uses language for memory, planning, abstract thinking, even your sense of self. So if a deaf child isn't taught sign language early, and also can't fully access spoken language, the brain doesn't get the tools it needs, even though there's nothing wrong with it biologically. For a long time, people didn't understand this. Back in 1880, educators decided that deaf children should be taught using spoken language only, and sign language was discouraged or straight up banned. The idea was, this will help them fit into the hearing world. But what actually happened was that a lot of deaf kids struggled, not because they couldn't learn, but because they were being taught in a language they couldn't fully access. By the 1970s, researchers started realizing that many deaf students could read words, but had trouble understanding full sentences because they didn't have a strong internal language system to support comprehension. Today, we know a lot better. Modern research shows that sign languages are full, complex languages that activate the same parts of the brain as spoken languages. Deaf kids who learn sign language early, often along with written or spoken language, tend to have better outcomes across the board. And deaf people don't lack an inner voice. They just experience it differently. Some see it, some feel it, some switch between forms. Some think in images or ideas first, which, honestly, hearing people do that too. We just don't notice it as much. So how do deaf people think? They think in whatever language their brain had access to early enough to grow with. Not less, not worse, just different. And once you realize that, it kind of changes how you think about thinking.